Welcome all one more time here on your program, Sankofa, with your host, Maponga J, on Galaxy Universal Network. Here we are, looking backwards in the future, looking backwards at the future. The whole intention of this program is to have a conversation with real people, real conversations, discussing, inquiring, investigating the greater space of the history where we're coming from, making sense of the present, moving forward into the future. Tonight is going to be very interesting because with us is Utata, or Uputi rather, or Mayibuye Mandela. If you have done any term or any form of research into the African space, you will know that there are stalwarts such as Kaundas, the Kamuzubandas, the Mwalimu Nyereres, the Nkwame Nkrumahs, the Sinkaras. And I think from the southern part, the Bikos pop into your mind, the Governbekis, the Sisulus, and in the midst of that mix, you will not talk South African independence and democracy without mentioning Utate Ukholihlahla, Tembu, the Tembus here, Kholihlahla, Tembu, Mandela. And here with us in studio tonight is his grandson. His grandson, to be all very interesting for us to pick up and see the legacy of the old being handed over to the young. And how are the young people actually looking back at what their grandfathers did? Does it make sense? Is it something, is that cause still something that they want to die for? And if not, where is the political parties, or where are the political parties missing the young people so that you have authentic children of the struggle who no longer want to identify with Cyril Ramaphosa or identify with the ANC as a political party? What causes that polarity? And I think for our conversation tonight, I would want to press a little bit hard and find out exactly where are we missing. And co-hosting with me tonight, a young lady, Unongo, a protege of mine, and you're learning the ropes, and so there's no stress. You'll be sailing along, and I'll allow the two young people to talk, and I'll be here as a referee. If anyone is misbehaving, then I'll gums your heads, But welcome to the show. And a quick introduction. Who are the Tembu tribes? Who is Mandela? And who is your father? And how are you related to this great stalwart that we always hear, Nelson Mandela?
Abatembu is a tribe that is currently based in Eastern Cape in Umtata. That is led by His Majesty King Buyelekhaya Dalindyebo. He's one of the greatest human beings that I've ever seen and that I've ever met on planet Earth, and that I know. Abatembu, they came from KZN, from a place called Ekuden. King Tembu had...
Harding or Kuden?
Kuden.
Where is the Kuden?
Kuden is in KZN. Mm-hmm. It's a place in KZN where there are still Abatembu, and there is still a chieftaincy that is owned by Tembu under the king, His Majesty, the king of the Zulu nation, King Zwelithini. When Velase and Pomoy, they were the sons of Tembu. One resided to the south. They traveled to the south. They went to the countryside, and then one decided to reside in Ekuden. We still own the land. We still have the land in Ekuden. Still the Tembu land. It was one of Velase's descendants, he called Ngoza, that whoever beated Ushaga in the battle, he came from the Tembu tribe.
The only one who beat Shaka?
The only one who beated Ushaga in the battle. I know once I say this, the Zulu nation will call me to order, hey, don't say there's someone that has ever beaten our king. Ngoza beated Ushaga. He was a descendant of the Tembu.
The Tembus.
Of the Tembus, you see. Abatembu, Nelson comes from a royal family. The head of the family is King Buyelekhaya Dalindyebo, whereby later while we resided in Eastern Cape in a place called Umtata, around Umtata, there was King Ngubengcuka. King Ngubengcuka's graves are in Klagbare and Ngobo, in the Eastern Cape. So King Ngubengcuka had 5 sons. That was Mnqanqeni, Joyi, Smakade, Mtokaka, and Mandela. Mandela was the youngest. Mtokaka was the greatest. So it's Mtokaka that was the oldest. It's Mtokaka that gave birth to Dalindyebo. That is why Dalindyebo is the head of the royal tribe and a king of the Abatembu nation. So Mandela gave birth to to Chief Phakanyiswa, Heri Phakanyiswa, Ugadla, who resided in a place called Umvezo, who was the chief of Umvezo. But when white people came, white supremacy, they wanted to take over, wanted to take the land, they wanted to incarcerate the king, and they repossessed, they took everything, his belongings. You know that during those times in late 1800s, what was most valuable, it was cows, you see. So he ended up exiling himself in Khomo. So Khomo is our second home. Where we originally come from is Umvezo. Umvezo is where the great place is, led by his the honorable member of parliament, the man that I always have inhaled, the chief of Abatembu, Umvezo, the head of the Mandela royal family, which is Chief Mandla Esizwe Mandela. Chief Zwelvelile is his praise name. Zwelvelile is the praise name. It's whereby I was also given, I went under the ride going to the mountain in Umvezo. It's where I...
But how do you do your rights in Umvezo when the royal house is in Khomo?
The royal house is in Umvezo because after, in 2007, the king decided that no, the Mandela house, the Mandela royal house, must get its chieftaincy back.
From Mvezo? Yes,
from Mvezo. So we went back to Mvezo. And then the old man, the global icon, said, okay, Mandela, I'm too old to take over. You are the great son, you are the elder. You must act. You must be the one that is the chief of Umvezo. So even today, he is a chief of Umvezo. And a parliamentarian also the other side. Yes, and somehow I...
So how your father and Mandela, how are you related?
My grandfather is Umakhatu. Nelson is my great-grandfather. My father belongs to...
On the 5 sons, which one is your father?
Is not on the 5 sons. The 5 sons comes from the great king.
Okay.
And then the king gave birth to Mandela, was the last son. The last son gave birth, Nelson had a brother, had a sister, who gave birth to Upewa.
Upewa.
Yes. Upewa was my father, and then he died long time ago. And then it was Mandla's responsibility. I was raised by Umandla, by the chief of Umvezo. I was raised by Umandla. It's a man that I always look up to. Although somehow in our political, I see differences, you see, because he's a chief and he's a politician. So I find it on the other way, like, okay, let me not say it. It's contradicting, you see, because if you are leading a society, as a leader of a society, you can't endorse a certain political party and be politically affiliated. Let's say the people I'm leading the people of any village. But
people are allowed to take various political parties, and when you choose one as a leader, you're compromising your community. Your community.
So that is why those are the differences. You must let us, the ones that who have no seat in the chieftains, and go to parliament and say, honorable landless member, please withdraw. You see.
And it was probably, if you were to take over into parliament, which political party would you go for? Currently given that opportunity to say, let me associate myself with a political party. Which political party would that be?
To be quite honest and be frank with you, I was raised in an ANC. I'm a man today. I can speak on myself. I can stand on my grounds because of the ANC. I grew up swimming in the pool of the ANC. I grew up in the ANC, you see. So it's not saying that I've abandoned the ANC. I don't want to be a member of the ANC. Anytime I can be a member of the ANC, but not at this time, because the ANC is a very good political party. But the people inside the ANC are messing up, so I don't want to be part and parcel of that. I don't want to go to the kangaroo courts and attend the Zondo Commission due to the corruption that the elders are doing. Those who claim to fight for the struggle for liberation, where they're fighting to loot. It's not that we don't want to take over from them. We don't want to challenge them politically. We don't want to organize ourselves as the youth. But when there's bread and books, bread will always win. And Abu Ramaphosa and all the elders in the ANC, they've mastered that art to even buy votes in Nazareth. We don't have money. I live here in Johannesburg. I have made nothing. So how can I? They know for the fact that I will need money. We do want to organize ourselves. And if in future, if it still continues, they are not being held accountable, I'm willing to even open my own youth political party. But next year I'm contesting elections. I want to become a mayor of Mthatha. It will be the surprise which political party it will depend, but it will be a surprise. But I'm willing, you see, for the liberation, for the true liberation, not what so-called democrats, for the true liberation of our brothers and sisters.
When you look at your grandfather and the legacy that he built, 27 years later from prison to president, and you look at the sacrifice that he made, the great world out there celebrates Nelson Mandela as this icon. What is it that when you look at him is worth taking with you and say, okay, Mkhulu, I think I may disagree with him on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But when you hear the Nelson Mandela in your own space, what is it that kicks in your heart? Number 2, what are some of the personal encounters that you may remember which you had with Umkhulu Holishasha?
Let's not start after Robben Island. Let's start before Robben Island, you see, because it's where he fought for the struggle for liberation. Most people have the mistake and have a tendency of saying, hey, you are controversial, my boy. Yes, I am controversial and I create controversy, you see. Before he was incarcerated, he went to Robben Island. Who was Nelson? He was a young, people always say, you are not following the right footsteps. They don't know who's Mandela, who's Nelson. Mandela was a young, militant, guerrilla soldier. He was a man who used to create bombs from scratch. So why can't I, if I'm following the footsteps, why can't I be radical, but in another modern way, you see? Because the system that they used back then, it doesn't serve in today's society, you see? Not to say they were wrong, you see. Most people, they fail to understand that he was a guerrilla, you see. That's what I like. He was a young soldier. He was a soldier. He used to create a bomb from scratch. So that is what I also want to learn. I want to learn how to shoot a firearm. I want to teach my kids how to shoot a firearm. Not that I've been promoting violence. White people, they take their kids to shooting range. I've been to shooting range many times. They take their kids to shooting range. What are they transpiring? Look at Senegal, what happened in Senegal. What were they transpiring on a black man? And our people, us as the youth, we are busy twerking in the streets of Maboneng, dancing. We don't know what to do, you see. Not that we don't want to organize. We are unemployed. Our government decides to insult us and give us 350 rands. So I always look up on the old man on his saying, more especially on his powerful statements that if the ANC does what the apartheid government did to you,
also do to them.
Do it to them. So those are the one things that he was truthful, he was honest, he was straight. And he also said, you must not be in one, you can't be in one room and agreeing in everything that one says. There's something wrong. There must be someone that will say, this is not right. So maybe I'm that person because
I'm more interested in what he has done more than what he has said. And following your words that he was more militant before the exile. And my question is, what, according to your own understanding, what could have transpired between the time he was a young militant boy who would manufacture a bomb from a young age, up to the time he was coming out of exile, and now he's more softer and say, no, maybe let every person who is Africa, let them belong to Africa and let them have the land. What could have transpired from the time he was more militant and said, no, this is our land, to the time he comes out of exile? What could have happened there? Who could have massaged his character at that time?
If he never did after prison what did he did, he never said what he said, our country was going to go in flames. We'll be grieving the griefs of blood today, you see. According to my own understanding, but I will shift away from your question a bit, trying to run away from some few points. But what most people fail to understand is the reason why Mandela said, no, there must be democracy, there must be this, there must be this and this, there must be this. South Africa belongs to all who lives in it. South Africa does not belong to all who live in it, you see. So the reason why he wanted to accommodate, because we didn't have weapons to fight these people. We're using umkhondo like ushaka. Yeah, they were creating bombs, but not all of us were able to carry guns. Where were we going to get the weapons, you see? So he had a strategy of saying, okay, that is why he was always with the youth saying, education is the most powerful weapon that you can use to change the world. He was not saying go to school behind a desk. He was saying learn, and then you will take over the country. He knows that 70% of 75%, he knew that the 75% of the land does not belong to black people. It belongs to white supremacy. And I don't agree with even the Freedom Charter that they adopted, but unfortunately he was not present during the crafting of the Freedom Charter. So we will be still fighting for there will be people that, I don't believe that I will be sitting here, we will not be free to speak, we will not be free. There will be no, you see, if he never said what he said. And he was pushed, he was forced by other countries, remember. And even in Britain, there was an AM that was anti-apartheid movements. So other countries wanted to take part, you see, fighting for the liberation of South Africa. But yes, we are not yet liberated according to what I believe. But Nelson was using a strategy. He was proposing a strategy. That is why he said, no, let these people... It was not that he was softening out. It was a strategy. That is why he said education. He talked of education, but we never understood what the man meant. So that was the education that it was talking about, you see. So to learn how to take over the country.
When we come back after the break, let's hear more from the young man here as he's taking us through some paces of his grandfather. And I'll be sitting here and listening to the young people battling ideas out, you know. He is a young independent candidate for Tsakane, and he is a political activist from the house of political stalwarts. I would want to sit here and actually hear this conversation taking its own direction. Don't go away, we'll be back right after the break.
Make massive moves.
The space race has already started.
Russia had got the first object into space.
The coast is as wild today as it was when Europeans settled the continent.
Enormous beasts with enormous thirst. The teams are primed and ready.
They got the first animal into space, and they got the first person.
Time to see what the boys can do.
Make massive moves with Starsat. Make massive moves.
How can you say that? That is what it is.
Your mother eloped with someone else.
I just think this is such a genius idea. I think it's amazing.
I can be happy.
It's inside you. It's inside of all of us.
It's about cooking smart that are nutritious and delicious.
President Trump acknowledging the coronavirus death toll could be significantly higher.
We don't want to do this.
There is nothing you can take.
Surviving roommates scared.
The heavyweights arrive.
Inside, finds Pachulia, blocked by Jane.
This is the will of God.
Make massive moves with Starsat. Make massive moves.
Isn't that your daughter's bib? But the truth is, I feel like Arabella's always with me.
Don't you ever forget this man's face. He killed your brother.
Don't shoot. Please don't shoot. Don't shoot.
Make massive moves with Starsat.
Every liberation struggle, if it does not prepare the next generation, it is bound to die. If you create a movement and you make it an old age home, a retirement home, where old folks that are coming from the battlefields, they come and take political power, and then they pick up the porcupine feathers, and poke all the young people away from them, because they don't want them to access power, then you find that after 10, 15 years, this has actually become an old age home, where the old veterans are all by themselves discussing the future, which they are not going to be part of. And I think many of the political parties in Africa have fallen into that trap where when they come back from battle, they take their political appointment as a time to pay each other, as a time to reward each other for the battles that they endured and etc. And in the midst of rewarding each other, they start asking each other, so which battle did you fight? Where were you, and etc., and begin to exclude. And they forget immediately. You detach yourself from the youth who might not have gone to the battlefront. But you cannot tell me that South Africa was liberated by those who went outside. The bigger battle was fought by those that remained on the ground, because these are the ones who ran up and down and torched and bent and protested and etc. While many of these guys were actually sitting in universities, studying in France, studying in Russia, studying in Yugoslavia, studying in America, accumulating doctorates, and then they come around and say, we liberated South Africa. I said, but which part of liberation are you talking about? You were having 3 meals a day, you were in a university boarding room, your university fees was paid for, and then you say you liberated the country. I still have a problem with us idolizing and pontificating those that went to exile at the expense of those that remained on the ground and literally ducked the bullets with dust pads, dustbin lids, crawling under the ground, woke up in prison every 3rd day, and etc. So, I don't want to maybe water down the legacy of your grandfather, who is Nelson Mandela, but when you are supposed to reflect in the totality of opposition and the uprising, and finally the government or the people that fight until the government gives in, how much credit have we given to 1 or 2 individuals in the struggle? Question number 1. Question number 2, is it correct that we actually can isolate a few individuals to have delivered the independence of a country, and we seemingly ignore everybody else that contributed? Is there a danger in the pontification? I'm using that word very intelligently. In the pontification or the celebration of a few icons, and then we drop everybody else into the backgrounds. What are the dangers? And your grandfather actually being a stalwart, you deserve to enjoy and celebrate yourself. Say, my grandfather is Nelson Mandela. But when you look at it when you actually pull you away from the situation, say, let's look at this thing nicely. From Bolangalibalele, from other stalwarts, some of which, give me some names of them. Steve Bikos, and you look at, and some of them actually did not even have a chance of fighting and seeing the day where this independence will be celebrated. They died in the back seats of the police cars. When you look at the pontification, the leadership of one man and his big shadow overshadows everybody else, what are the dangers of such kind of pontification?
It's very dangerous, because I also have a problem with such. The day that the state decided to have money, I will make an example with that, our rents to have the face of Nelson, you see. I started having a problem. Even Nelson himself who said, no, it's not me, you see. But the problem is the media, you see. That's the problem, number 1. It's the media. How they praise it. They don't give other platforms to other leaders. How many times have you seen Sobukwe's relative on TV? You'd never. You won't, you see. You will only see them when they are celebrating that day.
Or funerals.
Or funerals.
Then they want to be in long speeches.
You see. So I always have the problem, like for an example, this our rands, like 10 rand, 20 rand, yes, having a face of Nelson Mandela, you see. It's very problematic with me. I don't like it. It was not supposed to be only having a face of Nelson Mandela. Let's say 10 rand can have a face of Nelson Mandela, 20 rand, a face of Regent Tambo, 50 rand, a face of Biko, 100 rand. It was going to be much better, you see, because we have to all celebrate those struggle icons. There are people who died. Solomon Mahlangu was hanged. How many times do we speak of Solomon Mahlangu? Only once a year, you see. That is very problematic, and now it's one of those families that are powerful that would be able to bring this country to where it's supposed to be. That will, the youth that comes from those families are very angry at the people that were supposed to be with them. Try and see, okay, our families played this role in the struggle for liberation. So what do we do from now? What's happening? What do we do? And then we'll try and sit down and conclude, okay, these are the steps that we should take. But we're not given those chances. Ramaphosa refused to give us those chances, you see. They banned
Over to you. Over to you. Here you are as a young person. And here's Nelson Mandela's grandson. And you're building a legacy. He's living in the shadow of a legacy. And
I think as young people, our greatest task is not just to learn from the elders, but also to hold them accountable, fearlessly so. And I will always bring you to this question that I'm more interested in the things that Mandela did over and above the things that he has said. Because the things that he has said are things that we have been theoretically taught under the colonized education. And he has been idolized. And as young black people, we have been growing up under the education that Mandela is our hero and all of that. But my biggest interest when I grew up was, what did he do as an African man who was meant to liberate our Africans? And you may quote, nicely so, to say that he also would say that I'm not the only one. But on important platforms, one of the important platforms you mentioned was media. He has never admitted on an important platform to say that I am not the only one. Do not idolize me. Do not celebrate me alone. I was with this man and this hero and this hero, and let's all, and by that time he was a president with so much powers, let's all have this big African day where we celebrate your Nyerere, where we celebrate your Castro, where we and all these big guys, and we say let's celebrate our African heroes as Africans who have been fighting for liberation. And that's my issue, because by the time he died, we were celebrating for the 7 minutes and all these petty issues. And my question, some of the Africans, by the way, are saying that Mandela is an artist. I'm not sure if you know that. It's a very interesting history, because then, as a leader, you come out and you want to be a genuine leader, and you rectify the things that are not true about yourself, and you affirm those things that are true about yourself. And for some, he was very quiet.
I want to also first raise this, underline this part, that I'm not for the legacy of Nelson Mandela. I want to build my own legacy, you see. And when I go on the streets and move on the streets, I'm not always saying, Mayibuye Mandela, Mayibuye Mandela. My work will tell. What I do will tell. And by the way, Nelson once mentioned that there's one, you must even make a research even on YouTube, on an interview, him and Oprah. It's whereby you will see everything what he said. And one of the things that he also said, whereby he was in New York, interviewed by this white man, I forgot his name, in New York. They were having a conversation. He spoke about Fidel Castro. He spoke about brother leader Gaddafi. He spoke about all the greats that were supporting South Africa to be liberated, not only in the rhetorical capacity, you see, that were placing resources for this country to be liberated. He always talks about them, but they don't always play it on the media. You won't see it on TV, you see.
Can I ask you a question? Should you be the president of South Africa right now, and you know that you have graves of South Africans that are in Tanzania, that are in Zambia, where the present government is not interested? What would you do with your own South African children right now, whose graves, and those are the real heroes as far as I'm concerned, who liberated the country and they died in exile? What would be your idea of dealing with such an issue?
We need to unite as Africans, you see, to unite as Africans. But if I will lead and become a president, I will ask the families if they are willing to, let's say, to go and fetch to dig and then bring them home in South Africa. But they are even not lost there. It's their own country. This is Africa. These border gates were created by white supremacy to divide us. So they are not lost. They are not in the midst of jungle. They are not in Dubai. They are not in Europe. They are in Africa. And they were fighting for what? Not only South Africa to be liberated, for Africa to unite, you see. So they are not lost. They are not lost there. But if the family is willing, wants them to come back home, they want the grave to be in Ngobo, they want the grave to be in KZN, it's fine, we will take them. The country was supposed to go and fetch them. And then also have a symbol.
Let me come back to you as an individual and as a young person. What do you see the South African political terrain turning into And what sort of changes would you want to start having conversations with? What causes you to have this ideology that the present political parties are not aligning with your expectations? What are those expectations? And maybe the second question would be, how are you going to turn those expectations into impact?
Those people are very talented. They can influence a stadium, and then everyone will believe on what they say. For an example, now there's this land expropriation without compensation that is trending. And we as Africans need to have, as Africans, we need to adapt to take Swahili, and because this English flowering language is confusing us somehow. Because when they are saying now they talk of land expropriation without compensation, what is that? When you say land expropriation without compensation, you are legitimizing the fact that land is owned by white people and it must be used for public benefit. I don't believe in that. Land, if I would come in the parliament, they won't rest. I will tell them that land must be repossessed. It must be taken from the thieves. If I steal your car today, tomorrow we will reconcile. What should I do?
But take back my car.
Yes, that's it. So we must take back the land from white people. And then they will come and say, we will be like Zimbabwe. What happened in Zimbabwe? Our leaders here, South Africa and all other African countries, failed Mugabe. People of Zimbabwe today have the land. You can say, no, they are suffering so and so, but they own their own land. They have the land. And in
maybe
South Africa,
maybe for the benefit of the listeners, what could be the difference between expropriation and repossession?
Repossession is taking the land from the thieves.
And what is
expropriation? Without compensation, you are legitimizing that land must be used for public benefit. So it will be state-owned. Because if you say land repossession, everyone will benefit from the land. And if those who call themselves investors, they want to go and go to France and go to Europe again, those who call themselves investors, it's fine, they must go. That literally means we will all be part of the economy. I don't have money. So whether the rent falls or not, it's not my problem.
And I think it's clear that you are saying under expropriation, the land will be owned by the state. And under repossession,
by the looters.
Who owns the state? When we decide to repossess the land, who's owning the state? Who's owning the land?
The land now is owned by white people.
Well, no, in a situation where we're repossessing the land.
The state is they will say it's me and you. They will say it's those who pay tax. They will say it's so and so and so. But it's those mafias that will control the state. They are the ones that will benefit from them. They are the ones that who even loot alcohol from sanitizer, will steal from our land. That's the problem, you see.
Come with me, Chief, and take me through the greater space of Pan-Africanism and the modern, what I might want to call, fake African ideologies, where lots of our young people have become Pan-Africanists. And they're Pan-Africanists not because they want to change the system, but they want to reform the system. They want to put cotton wool and ribbons on a dead donkey. So that it won't smell.
It won't smell.
And I'm talking to you as a young person who has got lots of ambitions. Are you looking at a revolution or are you looking at reformation?
I'm a revolutionalist. I'm an activist. I'm a Marxist. I'm a Leninist. Being a Pan-Africanist, to me, for an example, one of the projects that I want to do, I believe each and every black person, a youth, must own a book by Biko. I write what I like. That's the starting point. That's where you will understand who are we as African people. You must read a book, say things fall apart. Yes. Those are the kinds of
things. The center can no longer hold.
You see. Those are the things that we should read. Like about Julius Malema, they call themselves youth. They are comfortable where they are, and then they call white people capitalists. What are they?
Bourgeoisies.
You see.
No, I'm asking you.
Sorry?
Are they bourgeoisies?
They are bourgeoisies. They are bourgeoisies, but even the bourgeoisies are not correct terms somehow. So on the other side is a celebrity. I don't know. I'm confused by. You can't be a revolutionalist, a Pan-Africanist, believe in Africa, because he also says, these border gates must go. He also says that. But what happened? What will happen if these border gates, someone that will go to Robin Renwick in London, the warlord, and come back and talk of that is an Africanist. Should I take that person serious? No, I can't. I can't. Someone who goes to Rupert and sits with Rupert for lunch. You want Rupert? Should I take you serious? No, I can't. Those are if someone who does not know his historical enemies is about to insane. You see, that's the problematic. People, they are comfortable. They know if you have such engagements with the media, they won't play it. They want to be famous. They want to be relevant.
I think you are bringing a very interesting point, but I want to bring you closer, maybe. In your own personal life, you have found yourself at the conference, at the founding conference of the EFF. What were your hopes?
It's not that one man that I always inhale in his, that I respect so much, the leader of BLF, Andile Mngxitama, was the one who wrote the founding document of the founding manifesto of the EFF. There was a place called Quilombo in Cape Town, whereby we were having such engagements, whereby, let's say this week we're going to speak about imperialism. We all engage about imperialism, debate about imperialism. That week we're going to speak about decolonization. You see, such projects, today we don't have them, you see, because they will say, no, it's a hate speech, it's a hate, because most people, they believe black consciousness. It's once you say, yeah, you come from black consciousness, you believe you are conscious, they will say, no, you want to kill white people, you see. So, I never took him serious, even from the ANC. But somehow it does have points. But I don't want to say that I was part and I was of the writing founding manifesto. But the leader that I know was part, and then I know, and we were engaging because they were going to Quilombo, and whereby we would engage. What do we wish for? What do we want? You see, because they will visit us, everyone. You see. So it's whereby I started adapting, and then, but
what do you think would be the problem? What do you think would be the problem in terms of opposition parties in South Africa from your own angle? Basically, looking at an angle where you're saying you were there when EFF was formulated. You were there, you know Mngxitama personally and other. But when you look at the political terrain of opposition parties in the greater South African space, what could you say is the biggest problem of the modern young political parties that are coming to the political space?
The problem is they don't want to unite. They don't want to sit in the round table and unite because they are fighting a common enemy. They are fighting, they are all talking about corruption, they are all talking about land, but why don't they sit down and organize themselves and see? Because if I open my political party tomorrow, I'll have my people. If you open your own political party tomorrow, you'll have your own people. So we'll never win, you see. But the EFF had 2/3 majority in parliament to expropriate land. Yeah, land expropriation is a better devil, but they never did. But they speak of this land because they know once they expropriate land without compensation, what so-called, they won't have anything to say.
So you spoke about you standing as a mayor come 2021 under an anonymous political party, and you are viewing them currently as you are sitting, all problematic. What could have went magical between now and 2021? Because you will be associating yourself with a particular opposition party, because you were clear that you are not ANC. So what would go magical from now to 2021?
I was not clear that I'm not ANC. I said I'm not a member of any political party. I'm a non-partisan. But in 2021, I won't contest elections as an individual candidate. I will be under a banner of a certain political party that I won't mention.
Now.
Yes. I have my own reasons.
Okay. You want to keep it under wraps. When we come back after the break, let's begin to hear again and what are his hopes for the future. Here we are sitting in studio with the grandson of Nelson Mandela from the Greater Tembo Tribes, and co-hosting with me tonight is Nongo. And we're growing, we're learning, we're listening, and the young people are battling ideas out there, creating a new dispensation for themselves. Don't go away. We'll be back right after the break.
Make massive moves.
Isn't that your daughter's bib? But the truth is, I feel like Arabella's always with me.
Don't you ever forget this man's face. He killed your brother.
Please don't shoot.
Make massive moves with StarSat.
Tech Talk brought to you by Tamani Technologies and Systems. Tamani Technologies and Systems takes leadership in 4th Industrial Revolution. The whole world is facing a transformation. The revolution will be developed into the following stages: digitization, cyber security, Internet of Things, managed services, document management, and business applications. We provide business transformation and ICT solutions with presence in 13 African countries and 2 European countries. We are your leading partner in integrated platform providers, innovation leaders, standalone products, and innovation pace setters. Tamani Technologies and Systems, delivering value across continents.
Your host, Maponga J. Your show is Sankofa, here live on Galaxy Universal Network. Sitting with me is Unongo, and together with the grandson of Nelson Mandela. You said your original name is? Yeah.
Mayibuye.
Mayibuye.
Melisizwe. Mayibuye. Melisizwe.
Melisizwe.
Yes.
Mandela. And I heard him mention, proudly so, 2 or 3 things. I'm a Marxist, I'm a Leninist, I'm a communist. And here we are as Africans, battling our heads off to deconstruct and decolonize. And yet we have young people who are fully embedded and engrossed in the same toxic manure of colonial Eurocentric mindsets, whether it is capitalism or socialism or Leninism. You're still aligning your mind with a white mind. And you think that using a white framework of mind, you are able to appeal to an African mind. I want to challenge you and ask you, how do you, as a Leninist, a Marxist, and a socialist, begin to adapt your concepts, your political ideology, into the African mindset in terms of thinking? Where do we meet as political ideologies?
Sorry?
You can hear me?
Can you try and repeat the question?
If you say you are a Leninist and you are a Marxist or you are a communist, are these ideologies not European? Are these ideologies not done by whites? How do we, again as young people, move away from our Ubuntu, move away from our culture? And we read and we study Western ideologies. And then we want to take our own African people into Western Eurocentric ideologies, and some of which have failed in their own spaces, and some of which have not been adopted, and some of which, for the West part of it, are politically aligned. Inside them, there is still the classification of races. And in socialism or capitalism, in its framework, I wonder what hierarchy and where the black people are placed in the mindset. Yes, it's one thing to take the ideology and say we're going to use it as Africans. But when the person was thinking about it, were blacks a priority in their thought pattern? If you hear me.
I hear you. But most do you know that white people somehow don't hate us because of the color of our skin. They hate us because we carry the brain and the soul, and they charge to get because they miss one first. They miss one. They only have one. They only carry one. You see. So we black people carry both.
They carry which one?
They might carry the brain, but they penetrate through us using our souls because our souls are very soft. You see. And then, not everything. Most things were not created and done. The ideologies by white people. It's black people. You see. But they will always see something good and make it as if it's theirs. You see, white people own nothing. Never mind the fact that resources but they don't have the capacity to think. They don't think to the core. So it's black ideologies. For an example, even most people, they don't know. They believe that it was a white person who created something that went to the space, although it was a black woman. You see, so that's one thing that we need to also...
I'm saying so. I'm saying so to challenge you. I'm not saying so to just ruffle your feathers. Because if you are the educated community right now amongst the black people, I want to see you collecting both indigenous knowledge, a bit of Marxism, a bit of capitalism, a bit of feudism, a bit of monarchialism, and come up with a breed of a product that will be relevant, audible, adaptable to the African continent, rather than for us just to say, let's make South Africa a socialist state. And we are saying, are we making another Russia here? Are we making another Czechoslovakia here? Are we making another China here?
And that's what's interesting about citizens or people who actually follow these ideologies and all the isms that are coming up, is that they, as much as they acknowledge that Marxism is the foundation, they fail to acknowledge that Marx is actually stealing ideas from Africans, and who are those Africans? But also, they fail to acknowledge that